All right, thank you, Haley. Appreciate that. If I can get a thumbs up, Brian, that you can see my screen, I'd appreciate it. All right, excellent. I'm here with Acuity Systems. My name is John Polishuk, Vice President of Business Development. Also with me today, Konstantin Gierkowski. He's our CTO. He'll be standing by if there are some questions in chat. He's happy to address them in chat as well as afterwards. Today, we're here on as a partner of ATARC, and they'd asked us to step in today and provide you with an overview of some of the products that are working behind the scenes to help this zero trust effort. And so I'm going to go through a quick agenda here, and I promise you we're not going to take a long time today. This will be probably less than an hour just to give you an idea. But hang with me, I think you'll see some interesting things. Start with just a quick overview, talk about what we are doing with ATARC and the ZT lab, as well as some of the other labs. We'll talk about our two products, talk about some use cases, jump into a demo, and then if there is some Q&A, happy to address that at the end. So an overview of Acuity Systems. We are primarily a services company over the past several years. We've been in the government space for many years and have served GSA, DOL, the Navy, and others. And as you can see, those are our sample areas of our expertise. But what I'd really like to talk to you today about is the top right, which is the nAbleCloud Labs and nAbleCloud PCE. These are the products that we've developed specifically for the government market. Now, Acuity Systems, we are a small business. We are here locally, local to DC here in Herndon, Virginia. And you can also see some of the primary technologies that we do, both our services and products with. If there's anything, please reach out to me. I know we're going to be supplying the slide deck as well as the recording to you at a further time. So feel free to reach out. So with ATARC, as everybody knows, they're very good at bringing together government and industry, doing white papers, thought leadership. But in working with Tom Suter, what we've talked about doing is trying to do a lot more hands-on. And that's where some of the zero trust has come from, as well as in some of the other labs, is really trying to get down and doing some POCs, really getting down into, making some things happen and moving them from just talking about them and doing papers to actually moving and having success in moving things into production in various agencies. So as you can see, we've partnered with them to provide them with a virtual lab environment. And currently, the Zero Trust Lab, as well as the AI and ML labs, I don't know if there's anybody on here that's part of the AI ML lab, but I'll touch on that in a little bit. But as you've seen over these past weeks, you've had some great vendors showing off their Zero Trust solutions. And it's been everything across the board. So there have been some that have leveraged our virtual environment to set up these demos. And when I talk about virtual environment, I'm talking about our ability to provide a virtual environment that is cloud agnostic, software agnostic, OS, whatever it may be. It provides a nice, easy to use proving grounds. And so it really lends itself to a lab concept. And so like I mentioned, we are using this for the Zero Trust Lab and AI and ML. So I'm going to start with the Labs, nAbleCloud Labs product. This product really is, it's a full service lab. And again, you're going to hear several things over and over again. I'm going to talk about agnostic. I'm going to talk about being agile and making things happen and being innovative. And we're going to talk a lot about self-service to the business, self-service to the end user. So keep those things in mind. So the lab, as I said, really provides an open environment. And it lends itself to many use cases, from demoing, products like Zero Trust, to doing POCs, to doing actual integration, to doing a lot of different things that normally you have to, engage with central IT in your agency. And sometimes that can, not to beat them up, but sometimes that can lengthen the time that it takes to do some of these things. So we're really, in customers telling us they really get bogged down. I hear it from both the side of being a software salesperson, as well as from the agency side, is a lot of times just getting in there and looking at this software can be a real problem. So that's one of the things that we're trying to address. And we're having a lot of success in some of these innovation labs, as well as with OTAs, which again are focused on bringing in new technology, reaching out to non-traditionals and engaging them in an agile manner. So the labs, you can do basic testing for features and functionality. You know, some of the demos that you've seen already really go through features and functions. I know they address some of the use cases that were put out by Jerry and HHS. But having your own lab allows you to develop your own use cases and do these demos and these presentations against those. Again, it's cloud agnostic, so AWS, Azure. We have GCP on coming soon later this summer. And it really allows you to do a 360-degree evaluation of software. So it's not just the feature and function. We hear over and over again from government that they want to be able to look under the hood. They want to know, what is this software, you know, how is it architected? How is it going to run in my environment? Because time and time again, purchases and acquisitions are made, things are brought in-house, and it's a little bit more complicated than they expected. It's got a little bit more of an O&M, you know, component to it that they weren't anticipating. It had some integration issues, things like that. So we really want to look under the hood for some of these things beforehand. Now, some of the use cases that I mentioned can just be as simple as doing market research. You just want to get your hands on things. For folks on the call, you know, zero trust and security, certainly a huge amount of use cases that can be done using a lab for that. Integration testing I touched on, you know, hardly ever is a single application going to run alone. You've got to have integration with other applications. Development, and then one that I'll touch on later in a use case is AI and ML tool evaluation and comparison. There's a lot out there. You can never stay on top of everything. It's a full-time job to keep looking at these things and seeing what is new, what's going to work for you. And then also zero trust. So what you see here is a shot of the admin dashboard if you were the lab manager. So the lab manager is overseeing the lab. It has many different use cases, and this is your overview panel, single pane of glass. So on the left here, you can see all the different projects that you have. You can see where they are and in what stage. The stages here are more around where are they in the stage of engaging with the vendor, or have invites been sent? Has it been submitted for review? Are they scheduled to do their demo? Those types of things. Then you see the number of instances that you've currently got in your lab, the number of images. Then the other thing that we keep hearing from government over and over again, back to the 360-degree evaluation, is the ability to look at what is this going to cost to run, okay? A lot of times that's very difficult to determine. A lot of times sizing and things are guesstimates. And what the lab allows you to do, because it is in the environment that you are running and controlling, is that you can look down here and see exactly what kind of costs it's taking to do, whether it's the demo or to do that POC that you're evaluating. So you can look at it from network costs to EC2s to storage, and have a good idea of what it's costing, what it's going to cost. And I'll be running through a demo after this so that you can see what it looks like live. So the lab, before I jump into nAbleCloud PCE, the lab can be both external and internal. External obviously is much easier to manage because you don't have the security constraints, but you do have constraints around being able to provide sample data, for instance. You know, it would have to be cleansed and be able to be shared externally. But what we've seen is a desire to have both an external lab and an internal lab, where you can do a lot of this outreach, you can do a lot of these external POCs, but then in your internal lab, you can use image management to actually move a pipeline and harden it and then bring that in. So it saves you a lot of time of having to do additional iterations. So switching gears to nAbleCloud PCE. So PCE is personal cloud environment. This allows you to have the tools of the cloud on your desktop, and happy to say it doesn't leverage VPN, as our previous presenter was talking about issues with VPN. We do it a little bit differently. That does enhance both performance and security. But this really allows you to do a lot of the functions in the lab, but it also lends itself to some other use cases that I'll touch on in a minute. So with PCE, the idea, again, going back to self-service, And this really had it was, the genesis of this was working with analytics and AI teams at one of our customers. And one of the things that we were seeing and the frustrations that we were seeing was that these groups, they've got a mission, they need to act fast. They can't wait for environments to be provisioned. To them, it's an unnecessary burden to wait. It's frustrating. They got their job to do. They don't want to have to wait and put in service tickets to get something provisioned. They've got their regular desktops, but if they're going to run their models and do heavy duty analytics, they're going to need a lot more horsepower, and they don't want to be spending time waiting on, and again, I'm sorry to beat up on central IT, but they've got plenty to do. And, provisioning you an environment is probably not number one, and they will get to it, but not instantly. The other thing that is very interesting about PC is for the remote workforce, distributed workforce. Again, doesn't leverage a VPN. And with today's amount in COVID and the amount of distributed workforce, we're really seeing a lot of interest in this because it does allow you, the way that we've architected this, to have the ability to really use cloud services. And you'll see how this is working when I show you the demo and how you can leverage it for that. The other item is technical training. And again, this came from the AI teams that we work with. We've seen wanting to upskill folks, whether they're coming out of something that RPA may be replacing. We want to upskill the workforce. And to do that, you need to have hands-on environments. We can look at training materials all day, but you've got to get hands-on, particularly with AI and data analytics. And so what we can do is provide a technical training environment that an image is developed with whatever software curriculum that you want to do and want to use, and they have the ability to go to it, spin up that environment, do their work, and then spin it back down. Again, self-service. So some of the things that the end users like about this, I talked about the elastic compute services so that you can spin up and actually add compute power when you want to run, say, AI analytics. The other is the bring your own license. So there's no need, again, being agnostic technologically, that's a hard one. BYOL, you can leverage the tools that your agency has already bought and already using. It's the stuff that you use every day. If you leverage this platform, you don't have to go out and buy something and train and learn something new. Use what you have. We can even use the licenses. It's very easy to implement. The other is snapshots and restore points. So I think back to, you're going to install new software on your laptop and you're scared it's going to blow up. So you want to make a nice Windows restore point so that you can always fall back to it. Similar concept. When you're doing a lot of this research and you're doing a lot of innovative things, you do have the possibility that it's going to blow, right? And so you want to be able to save your work. We've all been there. You got to save your work, make that snapshot so you can go back to it if something does happen. Not something that a lot of systems have. So we've heard a lot of interest in that. The other is having that ability to run serverless services in the cloud, whether you're remote or whether you're inside the enterprise. The other is having the compute power close to the data that you're running your AI and your analytics on. It helps with the performance. It also helps with security. And the security will switch to what does central IT like about it. Again, it's very, very secure. The idea with self-service, you can't have self-service without governance and security. Central IT is not going to give up the reins to end users and business to just go and have at it and start spinning up all kinds of things. There's got to be governance and security. And when you see going through the demo, you'll see how there are parameters that are already done in the background that keep things governed and secure. Again, they like the BYOL. One of the things that we see a lot of is this cost allocation by user group and project. So quite often, the cloud billing comes in a very macro level. It's not broken down very easily by a business unit, by a project, even down to a user and an image. So when you're talking about chargeback models, when you're talking about budgeting for specific projects, it's already done. It's very nice to have this. I'll show you that later as well. Reducing shadow IT. I hate to say it, but I've actually had conversations with folks and they've been telling me that they're doing stuff at home on separate laptops and then moving it over to their government laptop. And they're doing it because they're frustrated. They're doing it because they're trying to get their job done and they can do it better this way. Very scary, especially talking to a zero trust group. I don't have to say that more than once. Again, being able to access that stuff easily in the cloud, access that data. There's no need to download it. There's no need to put it on that extra laptop. There's none of that. So it's very nice from a security standpoint. The other being the ability to manage costs by spinning things up and down. You know, if you are a power user and you need a lot of compute, a lot of storage, you know, it's like the old days of you know, hosting. You provision the largest environment you're going to need because you don't want to have to provision it anymore. You want to have it one time. Well, guess what? That's not really what the cloud allows you to do. You want to have elasticity. You want to be able to increase, decrease. So with making it easy to increase and decrease, it's also going to help with the bottom line for your costs. All right, so let's talk about all the different use cases you can use in a lab, in what we call proving grounds many times. So on the left, you see different kinds of stakeholders. We talked about security, we talked about IT, we talked about procurement in doing a procurement evaluation, training. I touched on having specific images to do upskilling in AI or RPA or some of the other technologies. And then there's the full innovation lab. On the right, the different areas of interest that corresponds to some of those groups. And in the middle is the lab. And as I mentioned, custom cloud environments. It can be Azure, it can be AWS, GCP soon, governed and secure, and again, self-service. So let's take a look at a use case here. This is the one I mentioned earlier that we did with ATARC in their AI ML lab. And it's a similar idea to Zero Trust, where we've had government come to ATARC into that group and bring a use case and then have industry address that use case. This use case was brought to us by GSA, and it was around looking at FPDS data. And again, the FPDS data that is publicly available because this is an external lab. They wanted to look at that data to gain insights around what kind of projects are small businesses winning? Is there different, you know, things that we can learn about this? Is there a way that we can do better? Why are they only winning these contracts? You know, those sorts of things. So we took that use case and we worked with some AI companies. And one company specifically, I'll throw their name out because they did a fantastic job, was Symphony AI. And they took a look at this data and really stepped up and did some analysis and reported back to GSA their findings. And quite honestly, jaws were dropping. They couldn't believe some of the things that this Symphony AI team had found when they didn't even know anything about this data. And I'm not an AI person. I'm not familiar with what topographical analysis is. All I know is they were able to find things that were incredible that some of the teams internally who knew this data inside and out were able to find. So it was a great win for ATARC because, again, the customer was good. GSA was great in the insights that they gained. They saw a tool that could be very, very helpful that they're investigating further. ATARC was excited because the model worked excellent of bringing use case, bringing industry together, coming up with something and how to solve it. And of course, we were very happy from a lab standpoint because it was able to bring that together and enable this all to happen. So move to the Zero Trust, and this is obviously the group here. As I mentioned, there is a certain number of folks that are leveraging this virtual cloud environment to build out their demos. And some have been relatively straightforward demos. Some have been more customized to address some of these use cases. And again, the ability for us to quickly provision an environment that they have spec'd to us and then invite them in to deploy their software and do those integrations has worked very, very well. Now, from a Zero Trust, from an agency standpoint, you know, it's not part of the Zero Trust group right now, but if you had a lab for your specific agency, you can take it to that next level where you can do those things that the lab allows, where you can provide them some parameters that you have to function in, whether it's your agency gold image whether there are specific ports that can't be opened, things like this. That wasn't really a part of this. It was just to address use cases. But from an agency standpoint, if you can't function under the environment that your agency demands, then it sort of doesn't matter, right? And let's find that out beforehand instead of afterwards. So that's sort of, in my mind, the next iteration is to provide a more customized environment that some of these demos have to function under. The other thing that we've already been seeing is we've been seeing various zero trust vendors wanting to come together to provide more of an end-to-end solution. I'm not a zero trust expert, but from what I can see in here, there's a lot of different solutions that hit certain areas, but it really takes the whole neighborhood to come together for a full solution. And again, being able to have an easy to access lab where you can do this integration and you can have this collaboration between multiple vendors and even SIs who are managing multiple vendors and putting these together is really quite attractive. So we're looking at that as an additional offering down the road via ATAR. So that's it for the slide deck. Hopefully I am not speaking too fast. I do this, relatively often, so I get excited and go through it a little bit quick. I am going to move into the demo. Unless anybody wants to chime in right now with some questions, I'll pull up the demo. And believe me, I encourage you to jump in and ask some questions either now or later or via the chat. And if I hear silence, then that will tell me that there are none. All right, I'll take that as none. All right, so right now you should see the nAbleCloud's Labs dashboard, and you saw a picture of this earlier. So I'm not going to, rehash these basic components, but let me move into some of the others where the Labs really is similar to PCE. PCE, Personal Cloud Environment, is a lot of the technical underpinnings of Labs. Labs really is a way to put this into an organized fashion, to have some business rules around it, to be able to manage a lab as a whole, not just a specific project. So you'll see things here that are really more for a full lab manager. And I am logged in here as an admin. So you will see things that normally wouldn't be seen by, say, a specific vendor. So let me show you, if I go into projects, again, with my lab manager hat on, I can see various and assorted projects that are being worked on. And these are not real, so don't worry, these aren't RFPs that are out there. But this is a way to organize it so that you can track these things and really make it easy for a team of both evaluators and vendors, as well as managing a lab to all work in concert. So this specific opportunity, you can add metadata tags, you can add documents, whether they be marketing documents or slide presentations that the vendor may want to submit as part of this. You can also start setting budget limits. If you've got a review and you don't want to spend more than X amount of money, you can put this in here. And again, using that costing tool, you can start tracking what you're burning as far as cloud costs are to keep an eye on things so that you're not going way over budget. So then you can also drill down into, this would be, for instance, the different vendors that are doing demos for that specific opportunity or market research. Now, some of the tools that are interesting here is you can do editing, you can do comments, you can spin things up and down, you can look at things like how much it's costing and what they're burning down to a much more micro level. If you want to set up a new demo, you can just create one in here. And let me move my bar so I can see it. There we go. For some of the different components. Now, this is similar to PCE, where since I'm an admin, I have the ability to look at all the different instances that are running right now. So this instance here is my personal one, and you can see it tells you everything I need to know. I named it, what it's called, what it's configured with, the OS, how many cores and storage. But if I need a new instance, and this is where that self-service comes in that I was telling you about, you can create an instance as easy as just drop down menus. I put in something, I can assign it to a group, whether it's a project or some other market research project. I can assign the different type of OS. And again, all of these drop downs and all of these things are controlled and governed so that you only have access to what you're allowed to see, like this. So you can provision how much CPU that you need, but we're not going to have a drop down that goes down here and gives you 100 CPUs, right? Because that would burn some money pretty quickly. So all of this is configured in the background and can be changed as needed. Storage, same thing. So that's how easy it is to actually create a brand new instance from a user level. I'm not an AWS console, cloud admin. I press the button and I hit the drop downs, and I'm smart enough to know some of the drop downs, what they mean. So it's that easy to do. Now, this instance right here is currently running. So I can open this instance and go into it. I can hit that create save point that I mentioned to you. I can also save the entire image and spin it down and save that for later, maybe transfer it to somebody else. If somebody leaves the organization, you'll still have the image and all that work. An interesting thing that we did just add, and it's got a nice security spin to it, is this add observer. So let's say I'm doing some work and I want to share it with somebody. I want to share it with a teammate, whether it's something that's erroring out and I need support, or maybe it's some interesting findings that I have from an analytics or an AI standpoint, and I want to share that with some folks in my team. I can do that by using this and allowing them to then come in and look at this. And they're looking at it internally through this system. It's not externally, using Zoom or some other chat or video function. So it's much more secure in that it is inside the same environment with the same controls. And as that user, even though I allowed them to use it, I still have to make it active and invite them in. And so you can see here, I've got it set up to be observed, but I haven't actually let them in yet. All right. And then just bug reporting, sending a report if you're having some issues. So that's my instance that I can develop. I also have the ability to create my own data sources and link to my own different data sources. Again, gives you all of the information that you need of what it is, where it is, and what it's running on. You can start it, stop it, create save points, same as before. You also have access to do the same thing with storage. Now, I'm leveraging S3, AWS S3 buckets. It's the same sort of thing where I can have my own. I can also have shared buckets for team use. Now, these were just my own that I had set up. I mentioned earlier that I'm logged in as a lab manager. So I've got the ability to see all the instances that are running in the lab right now. So I can see the instance name, who the user is, and then different information. I can see if they're running. I can even start and stop those for them. If I know that Karen has gone on vacation for 3 weeks and I want to not let her instance burn away and it's not being used, I can spin it down for her. Very nice, and I can take the snapshot as well. So it's very nice to be able to see exactly what these users are doing. I can see what that instance is made up of. Again, make sure that they do have snapshots and save points from an admin standpoint. You can manage all of this from here. And the same sort of thing where I can look at the data sources. I can also look at the storage. All right, now let's move into this cost data. This is really where it gets interesting, and it goes to what I was talking about earlier, where it's at a much finer grained level than just that macro cloud bill that you may be getting. So again, I can go into this project. Karen's working on this project. I can see the different instances that she's got running. I can see if they are running. I can see how much they've accrued. And now we're getting this from the AWS API. So they do this on a daily basis. And then we can extrapolate that out into a monthly cost. Again, you can put in budget limits. We have notifications that you can go to bring this to notice if it is trending way above. You can look into it. But here's the interesting thing is you can go down into a much more granular level and see what the actual compute, storage, and even the save points are costing. Again, good for chargebacks, good for understanding what some of the software may be costing. Now, something that we've added recently is think of this as a library that the administrator is managing of things that have already been made. So this, for instance, are images that we've built that these are all being in use, but they can be also held for use by others. So if you have pre-configured images, that is this combination of services, you can just keep that and have that and be able to deploy that very easily or assign it to somebody else in the future. The same goes for going into these other components, which are not a full image, of course. But you can see we've got OSs that we've already got loaded. And a lot of these are ones that have been asked, for us to develop for folks that are using and doing projects in the lab. Same sort of thing of compute, storage, even database types. So all of this work has already been done, even down to the different version level. And again, having this already done and being able to just have this from a drop down and be able to assign this really speeds things along and makes things much more efficient. All right. Any questions? I'll take a quick pause. All right. So let's switch gears into nAbleCloud PCE. Again, personal cloud environment. Now, I showed a little bit of this as the lab admin because I had the ability to do these things previously, but I'm going to dive into it more from the actual hands-on user perspective so that you can see how you would leverage this as an actual employee, whether you're remote or you're in-house. So again, on your left, you've got what's running, what's not running, whether you've set it up to be viewed by others or not viewed by others. You can see exactly what it's composed of, when it started. You can stop the instance right here. You can open it. You can create a save point. And here's the Add Observer button. Now you'll see this changes if I go down to the instance that is not running. I have different things like edit instance. And this is where if I was needing to go in and actually run some analytics and I required more than 2 CPUs, I can go in here and using the drop down very simply add a lot more power to it. Again, totally configurable of how much they can add. Same with storage. And simply by hitting submit, it will go in and start changing that. In fact, I'll go ahead and do it. Now, it does take a little bit to actually make those changes and spin it up because, again, this is going out to AWS, configuring that, and then spinning it up. So let's go back to this one that is running, okay? Again, I've got my save points, my observers, but now let's go into this image that's been developed. Now, as you can see here, this is a set of tools. Again, remember the bring your own license. This is a set of tools that I use that I know that my agency may have licensed. Now, we have a lot in here that are open source, but think of this as whatever your user or you are familiar with. This is an image that's pre-built with the specific software that you use. Now, I could be remoting in, not through a VPN, and I still have access to all these different tools. And we've grouped them, analytics tools, MicroStrategy, Tableau. But here's the interesting thing is here and in the AI tools, I can actually get direct access to something like a serverless project, product at AWS. It'll go in and get me right to SageMaker. Now, very simple, as you see, it's not hard. I can do it. I'm a sales guy, right? But you can have whatever combination of things here, including your S3 browsers, MySQL, but then even your own productivity tools, and then other analytics in AI and ML like 9. So you can run all of this as a remote worker or even internally, but having that ability to add more power behind things and run and spin up and spin down really makes a huge difference in your effectiveness and takes out some of that frustration. Let's see. Okay, so here we always show this so that you can always keep an idea of exactly where you're at, so that if you do know that you're going to need more power, you can back out and then go in and increase or decrease what you're actually using. So let's see. Get out of that. Again, I've gone through a lot of this, whether it's notifications or being able to manage people that get moved into my group, or password management. All those types of things are all in here. And again, since I'm an admin of this business unit, I can see all the different things and all the different images that are being run by people on the team, including my own. And that is really it for these two products. So I'm going to stop sharing and see if there are any questions out there that either I or Constantine can answer for you. Okay, not everybody at once, but it does look like there are no questions.